It was 1 a.m., and her husband, Nan, still hadn't come home. Their daughter, Duo, continued to suckle at Qin Sang's breast tirelessly. To feed the baby, Qin Sang had been lying on her side for over an hour, her right shoulder and arm numb and swollen. She desperately wanted to lie flat to relieve the pressure on her shoulder. But she couldn't move. If she did, her nipple would slip out of Duo's mouth, and the baby would wail. Unable to hold it any longer, Qin Sang got up to go to the bathroom. As soon as her nipple was pulled out, Duo cried out, her chubby legs kicking wildly, the piercing sound grating on Qin Sang's ears. She bent down to comfort her, saying, Duo, Mommy will be back from the bathroom very soon. A 1-year-old child couldn't possibly understand so much. Her cries were still heart-wrenching. Qin Sang felt her head about to explode, a dull ache spreading through the back of her skull. Thinking of the piles of laundry and bed sheets waiting to be washed tomorrow filled her with despair. For a fleeting moment, she even thought about covering the baby's mouth to gain a moment of peace. As she stepped out of the bedroom and crossed the living room to the bathroom, she could hear her mother-in-law's thunderous snores from the next room. The despair only deepened. Returning from the bathroom, Duo was still wailing. Duo, are you trying to drive Mommy to her death? Qin Sang cried weakly, switching sides to lie down again and putting her nipple back into the baby's mouth. The sound of the door opening announced Nan's return. Moments later, the sound of retching from the bathroom sent chills down her spine. Damn it, he was drunk again. Nan stumbled in, belching, and a wave of the stench of last night's alcohol assaulted her. He didn't even bother to change his clothes, collapsing onto the bed in a sprawled position and falling asleep. Qin Sang quickly scooped up Duo to prevent her from being crushed by Nan's outstretched arms. The foul odor churned in Qin Sang's stomach, making her feel as if she was rechewing and swallowing what Nan had vomited, nausea rolling over her. The snoring from both her mother-in-law and husband echoed, wearing on Qin Sang's exhausted mind, and she involuntarily recalled her mother's warnings. Initially, her mother had strongly opposed her marrying Nan. Her mother had said that Nan was too much of a socialite and not the kind of man who would take care of a family. But at that time, she didn't care. She thought as long as Nan loved her, that was enough. What she had lacked all her life was love, after all. She was like a long frozen mountain, and Nan's little acts of kindness felt like the blazing sun in August, melting away all her coldness. In front of Nan, she was as soft as spring water, wanting to give him her heart and soul, believing that was love. Thus, the more her mother opposed, the more determined she became to marry him. Eventually, a big part of her motivation was just to spite her mother. Qin Sang secretly married Nan and moved into his home. This way, all the money for the bride price, wedding, honeymoon, and wedding photos were saved by the family. Nan's mother was thrilled, feeling her son had really brought her pride. Soon after the wedding, Qin Sang was pregnant. Her belly grew day by day, and Nan gradually reverted to his old ways. He partnered with a few friends to run a hotel, always citing busy at the shop, having social engagements, or can't get away as excuses for staying out late. From that point on, Qin Sang began to feel an inkling of regret. But what could she do? The baby was about to be born. Finally, Duo fell asleep, her chubby body rolling over to face away from her. Qin Sang, too exhausted, turned onto her side, the faint light of dawn filtering through the curtains, casting a cold, grayish hue. In just 2 hours, the sun would rise. In truth, defying her mother wasn't just limited to marrying Nan. Qin Sang had always had a contentious relationship with her mother. Ever since she was young, Qin Sang had envied other kids. It wasn't just because she grew up in a single-parent household, but more because she had an overly flamboyant mother. Her mother's name was Zhenju, an extremely tacky name. Zhenju kept her hair dyed a sharp wine red and, though she was almost 50, still liked to wear skinny jeans and high heels, with a waist as slender as a young girl's. Qin Sang didn't like her mother's flashy appearance and would silently fume. Other people's mothers were so gentle and proper. Why was hers the only one so gaudy and vulgar? When she was younger, Qin Sang feared parent-teacher meetings the most. Other kids dreaded these meetings because of bad grades, but Qin Sang feared that Zhenju would embarrass her. Qin Sang had a sensitive and proud nature from a young age, and her grades never fell below the top 3 in her class. She was both class president and a student representative. Every time the teacher praised Qin Sang by name, Zhenju would break out into a wide grin like an octopus, spreading her arms out to show off to the other parents. "That's my daughter. She's my daughter." In those moments, Qin Sang would bow her head in silence, feeling deep shame for her mother's vulgarity. Though Zhenju never remarried after her divorce, there was never a shortage of men coming and going from their home. One day, Uncle Zhao bought Qin Sang new shoes, and a few days later, Uncle Ma brought them bags of snacks. Just as Qin Sang got used to Uncle Yu, the next year, he was replaced by Uncle Wang. Because of Zhenju, Qin Sang became quite the talk of both her school and the neighborhood. Everyone knew that Qin Sang had a promiscuous mother. Qin Sang loathed her mother's flirtatiousness and swore she'd never be a woman like her. By middle school, early relationships were already becoming a trend, and while Qin Sang was petite with fair skin, her almond-shaped eyes sparkling with an intriguing mix of sadness and liveliness, none of the boys who liked her could move her heart. By high school, she focused solely on her studies, determined to get into college and gain her independence. Qin Sang met Xia Nan when she was about to graduate from university, while interning at a foreign trade company. Xia Nan was 3 years older than her and had already been navigating the real world for years, seeing right through her innocence and naivety. He wrote her poetic love letters, brought her breakfast every morning, and even made a public declaration of love by dedicating a song for her on the radio on her birthday. Such gestures might not have worked on other girls, but for Qin Sang, they hit the mark perfectly. His tender, affectionate actions were like a warm spring soothing her long-neglected heart. Qin Sang had been emotionally closed off for years, and just as she was about to graduate and secure a job, she felt she could finally open up to a relationship. In that sense, Xia Nan had shown up at just the right time. After landing a job post-graduation, Qin Sang took Xia Nan back to her hometown to meet her mother. The 3 of them simply had a meal at a restaurant. Zhenju's impression of Xia Nan wasn't good. She kept a cold face throughout. Zhenju said that Xia Nan seemed slippery at his core, pretending to be an honest man. She pointed out that he didn't have a stable job, mingled with all sorts of people, and had too many social events. She concluded that with Qin Sang's nature, she wouldn't be able to control him. With a frown, Zhenju tried to talk her daughter out of it. "Qin Sang, you've just graduated. Wouldn't it be nice to enjoy a few years of single life? I just don't understand why you're in such a rush to get married. Men, if you find one, great. If not, so what? There's no need to force it. You can't just grab one and marry him." Qin Sang's anger flared. Why was she rushing to get married? Didn't her mother understand? It was because she wanted a proper family. Only a woman like you, Qin Sang thought bitterly, could enjoy messing around with men like it's a game. Qin Sang retorted sharply. Other moms are worried their daughters won't find someone. They start pushing them into blind dates before they even graduate. And you? How many of my issues have you ever really cared about? I'm 24, and this is my first relationship. You have one meal with him and then trash him like he's worthless. Seeing her daughter so furious, Zhenju's eyes welled up with tears. Qin Sang, Mom just doesn't want you to get married so early. I've been through it. Would I lead you into a trap? Once a woman gets married, she loses her freedom. Qin Sang thought her mother was being unreasonable. Frustrated, she shook her head. Stop it, I'm not like you. I don't want to live your kind of life. In a fit of anger, Qin Sang left with Xia Nan that very day, leaving Zhenju behind to weep alone. Her daughter's stubbornness was all too familiar. It reminded her of herself when she was younger. Zhenju had a sinking feeling that her words couldn't bring her daughter back. She could taste the disdain in Qin Sang's words. Her daughter looked down on her. The more Zhenju spoke, the more Qin Sang would dig in her heels and defy her. Not long after the baby was weaned, Qin Sang discovered that Xia Nan was having an affair. That afternoon, she had pushed the stroller to the market to buy groceries, only to realize she had forgotten her keys when she returned home. She had no choice but to take a taxi to the hotel Xia Nan managed. From across the street, she saw him sitting by the window with a woman. Xia Nan had his arm around the woman, their heads close together as they spoke intimately. A rush of anger surged through Qin Sang. She wanted to storm in and slap them both in the face. But she was pushing a stroller with her sleeping daughter inside. A large plastic bag filled with olives, zucchini, and eggplants dangled from the handle. Several long green onions stuck out stubbornly from the bag. There were still faint, dried milk stains on her clothes. If she walked into the restaurant looking like this, the scene would certainly be ridiculous, wouldn't it? Suddenly, her mother's words echoed in her mind from before she got married. Qin Sang, once a woman gets married, she's no longer in control of her own life. Why rush into marriage so early? At that moment, Qin Sang began to understand her mother a little. Her mother had never spoken about Qin Sang's father. She didn't know why they had separated. But her mother had left decisively. She must have experienced countless moments in her marriage that were just as ridiculous and hopeless as this. Looking down at her peacefully sleeping daughter, Qin Sang suddenly felt exhausted. Even the short walk across the street now seemed unbearably long. She was so tired. She didn't want to take another step. She stood frozen in the middle of the road for a moment before taking a taxi back home. By the time she arrived, her mother-in-law had returned from visiting neighbors. Qin Sang said nothing, preparing dinner as usual. That night, she closed the bedroom door and quietly packed their things, booking a hotel room online. As expected, Xia Nan didn't come home that night. Around midnight, when her mother-in-law's snores filled the house, Qin Sang snuck out with her child. The next morning, Qin Sang called her college friend, Xiao Hui. Out of all her dorm mates, she was closest to Xiao Hui. After graduation, the other girls had returned to their hometowns, but Qin Sang and Xiao Hui had both stayed in the city where they went to college, Zhoucheng. Qin Sang had stayed to avoid her mother, while Xiao Hui had no choice but to stay because her family was too poor. On the phone, Xiao Hui was as warm and genuine as ever. After hearing just a few words, she understood the situation. Qin Sang, say no more. Just come stay with me. The place is small, but there's room for you and the baby. You can stay as long as you need. Qin Sang clutched the phone, unable to speak through her tears. She nodded furiously, as if Xiao Hui could see her from the other end of the line. In the end, Qin Sang didn't tell her mother about her decision to divorce Xia Nan. She thought she hadn't told her mother when she got married, so why tell her about the divorce? In truth, she was afraid her mother would mock her. After she got married, her mother had come to help during her postpartum recovery and insisted on leaving her 80,000 yuan. But her mother and Xia Nan's mother didn't get along, so once Qin Sang's recovery was over, her mother left and never returned. Qin Sang believed her mother still resented her. Around 6 p.m., Zhenju finished her dinner early. Since she ate alone, she kept the meal simple, a plate of stir-fried olives and some leftover 8 treasure porridge from breakfast. She loved eating red cabbage because experts said it had anti-aging benefits. After washing the dishes, Zhenju hummed a tune as she stood in front of the mirror applying makeup. It was the weekend, and at 7 p.m., the senior university was hosting a ballroom dance party. Living alone for so long, Zhenju had become quite good at finding joy in her life. Suddenly, she heard someone downstairs shouting Qin Sang's name. Qin Sang, come out. Hand over the child. Qin Sang, you filthy woman. You stole my man. You're just as low as your mother. Zhenju, give me back my daughter. Zhenju rushed to the window, peeking from behind the curtain. It was Xia Nan, standing downstairs, his neck stiff as he cursed at the top of his lungs. Nearly every window in the building was open, with neighbors craning their necks to watch the spectacle. Zhanzhu was trembling with rage. She quickly went to the bathroom, grabbed a red plastic bucket, and stormed to the window. With a sharp shove, she flung the window open and dumped a full bucket of foul-smelling, blackened water from the 5th floor straight onto Xianan. Before Xianan could react, Zhanzhu stuck her head out the window and yelled, "You bastard! You tricked my daughter into marrying you without spending a cent. You didn't even have a proper wedding. Now you've driven her away from home, and I haven't even come after you yet. Let me tell you something. I only have one daughter. If anything happens to her, I'll risk my life to settle the score with you." Soaked in the disgusting water, Xianan went into a frenzy. "You old hag, where did you hide my wife and child? Your daughter told me everything about your dirty past. You're nothing but a public bus, open to anyone who gives you something." Zhanzhu didn't bother to continue arguing with him. She took out her phone and recorded Xianan's vulgar tirade. When Xianan was finally out of breath from shouting, Zhanzhu waved her phone at him and said, "You ungrateful little brat. As long as you haven't divorced my daughter, I'm still your mother-in-law. I've recorded every filthy word you just said. Go on, keep cursing. The more you say, the more I'll record. Then I'll post it online and let everyone see what kind of person you really are." As soon as Zhanzhu finished speaking, laughter erupted from half the building. Someone poked their head out and shouted to Xianan, "Hey man, your wife ran away. Instead of looking for her, you come here to yell at your mother-in-law? That's crossing the line. If you keep this up, we'll call the police. Some of us have kids studying for their college entrance exams here." Another voice chimed in, "I've already called the police. If you don't leave now, you can wait for them to pick you up." Realizing that Qin Sang probably wasn't hiding at Zhanzhu's place, Xianan didn't want more trouble. He cursed under his breath as he left. Once he was gone, Zhanzhu backed away from the window and slid to the floor, leaning against the wall. Suddenly, she broke down, crying helplessly with her mouth wide open. Qin Sang, "My poor child, where are you hiding? You've been hurt so badly, but you still won't come to your mother." The eyeshadow she had only half applied was now smeared into a mess. Her face looked like a wrinkled, ruined painting. Zhanzhu no longer had the heart to attend the senior university's dance party. She began packing her bags, determined to catch the earliest train the next day to find her daughter and granddaughter. The next day, Xiaohui received a call from Zhanzhu. "Is this Xiaohui? This is Qin Sang's mother." "Auntie, how did you get my number?" "I found the number for your university's counselor online. She added me to your class group chat, and then I asked your class leader for your number. I'm already in your city." "Xiaohui, tell me the truth. Is Qin Sang with you? You two were the closest back when you were in school." "Auntie, don't worry. Qin Sang is with me." That evening, Xiaohui brought Zhanzhu home. When Zhanzhu entered, Qin Sang was stunned. "What are you doing here?" "Qin Sang, be nicer to Auntie. She went through a lot of trouble to find you." Xiaohui tried to mediate. Qin Sang softened a bit inside, but she didn't know what to say. Zhanzhu sighed, her voice full of exhaustion and helplessness. "Qin Sang, did I raise you to be my enemy? Something so serious happened, yet you would rather hide at a friend's place than tell your mother?" Qin Sang, tears welling up, turned her head away and remained silent. Zhanzhu, suppressing her frustration, tried to find an excuse for herself. She sat next to Qin Sang and asked with concern, "Qin Sang, the child is still so young. What are you planning to do next? You can't stay at Xiaohui's place forever." Qin Sang replied, "I still have a little money. I want to rent a place and hire a nanny to look after the child while I go to work." A nanny these days costs no less than 3,000 yuan a month. How long can your savings last? Zhanzhu shot back quickly. "I've already thought it through before I came. I'll take care of the child while you go find work." Zhanzhu glanced tenderly at her sleeping granddaughter, her gaze softening like water. Qin Sang knew that her mother's plan was the only practical solution, but she couldn't bring herself to ask her mother for help. 2 days later, Zhenzhu rented a new apartment in the city and moved Qin Sang and her granddaughter in. Qin Sang found a job at a foreign trade company, starting from the bottom. During the day, Zhenzhu took care of the child at home, and in the evenings, when Qin Sang returned, Zhenzhu would have dinner ready for the family. Initially, Qin Sang barely spoke to her mother, but now that they had the little one, the mother and daughter began talking more. "Mom, bring over Duoduo's bib. Mom, you serve the food. I'll watch Duoduo. Mom, I'm off to work. There's a show at the community entrance this afternoon. Don't forget to take Duoduo to watch." Duoduo became the bridge between Qin Sang and Zhenzhu. At the end of her first month at work, Qin Sang received her paycheck of 3,000 yuan. It was the first time in 2 years she had received a salary. Although it wasn't much, it gave her a sense of independence and accomplishment. As soon as she finished work, she rushed to the mall. She spent a long time picking out gifts, eventually spending 200 yuan on a talking doll for her daughter and buying her mother a cashmere scarf. By the time she left the mall, the sky was dark and a light drizzle had started falling. The autumn wind and rain carried a biting chill. While waiting for the bus, Qin Sang wrapped the toy and the scarf tightly in her coat, afraid they'd get wet. By the time she got home, it was past 9 p.m. Zhenzhu had just finished giving Duoduo a bath and drying her off. The two of them were laughing and playing on the sofa. The meal that had been left for Qin Sang was still covered on the table. Zhenzhu said, "Working overtime again? Let me heat up your food." Qin Sang took out the gifts from her coat and, with a wooden expression, said, "These are for you and Duoduo. I got my paycheck." It was only then that Zhenzhu noticed Qin Sang was soaked through, but the things she was carrying were dry. Zhenzhu suddenly remembered that her daughter hadn't given her a gift since she was a little girl. The last time she received something from Qin Sang was when she was 7, on her birthday. Qin Sang had bought her a small cake. As Zhenzhu stroked the soft cashmere scarf, her nose tingled with emotion. Don't waste money. Raising a child will cost plenty in the future. Zhenzhu set the scarf down on the sofa, hiding the tears in her eyes, and carried the food into the kitchen. Outside, the light drizzle had turned into a downpour, and the autumn wind whipped the rain furiously against the windows. Inside, the lights were warm and inviting, a picture of family harmony. Qin Sang sat at the dining table, eating the sweet and sour ribs and spicy lotus root slices her mother had reheated for her. Duoduo was clutching the talking doll, babbling in delight, while Zhenzhu stood in front of the mirror, trying on her new scarf and posing this way and that. For the first time in her life, Qin Sang felt the warmth of family. Since she was a child, she had always been searching for this feeling. Who would have thought that these days, after filing for divorce, would turn out to be the happiest time of her life? Perhaps that's how life is, constantly full of contradictions. One weekend, Qin Sang was pushing Duoduo and her stroller to the supermarket. Just as she reached the entrance of the neighborhood, 2 men suddenly appeared from nowhere, one on each side, restraining her. Unable to break free, a tall man seized the opportunity to snatch Duoduo from the stroller, holding her under his arm and running frantically toward a nearby van. Duoduo, terrified, burst into loud cries. The 2 men who had held Qin Sang also released her and sprinted towards the van. In a panic, Qin Sang chased after the van and grabbed hold of the door handle. In that moment, she saw clearly that the driver was Xiannan. Qin Sang clung desperately to the door, preventing it from closing. Xiannan, furious, yanked at the handle from inside, trying to shut the door with all his might. Qin Sang's head was struck, and she began to bleed, but she dared not let go, fearing that if she did, she would never see her child again. Enraged, Xiannan floored the gas pedal. The immense force flung Qin Sang to the ground, and she was dragged along the road for over 10 meters. Her thick winter coat was torn, spilling its cotton filling onto the street, while her face and head, dragged along the ground, were covered in blood. The van sped away, kicking up dust, and Duoduo's cries still echoed in Qin Sang's ears. Staggering to her feet, Qin Sang, her face streaked with blood, seemed to have lost her soul as she screamed, my child, where is my baby?" A crowd had gathered on the street, exchanging bewildered looks. Everything had happened so quickly that no one fully grasped what had just occurred. Sobbing, Qin Sang crouched down and called Jinju. Mom Duo. Duo was taken by Xianan. Jinju, who had been preparing vegetables at home, rushed downstairs in her slippers. Seeing Qin Sang's miserable state, Jinju felt her heart shatter into pieces. She knelt down and held Qin Sang in her arms, tears welling up as she comforted her. Sang, don't be upset. Don't worry, Mom will help you get your child back. Jinju reported the incident to the police. When they arrived, after understanding the situation, they claimed it was a family matter and that they had no authority to intervene. Qin Sang, heartbroken and unable to form a coherent sentence, could barely speak. Jinju, however, refused to back down. A family matter? Does that look like a family matter happening out in the middle of the street? There are so many witnesses here, and you're telling me it's not a public disturbance? And even if it's a family matter, isn't this domestic violence? Look at how badly my daughter has been hurt. Turning to the onlookers, Jinju shouted, "You tell me, should they be involved or not?" Seeing Jinju's persistence, the officers reluctantly said, "All right, ma'am, we'll document this incident thoroughly. Your daughter is already filing for divorce, right? When the time comes, you can have her lawyer collect the police report from our station. This incident will serve as evidence of domestic violence." Jinju nodded. "Good, I just want fairness. I'm not trying to make things difficult for you." As the police car drove off, Jinju gently supported Qin Sang as they made their way home. With Duo suddenly snatched away, Qin Sang seemed to have lost her spirit, walking unsteadily, each step heavy with sorrow. Midway home, Qin Sang mumbled in a daze, "Mom, I didn't listen to you back then. I married Nan behind your back. You raised me all these years, and you didn't even get to attend my wedding. Do you hate me?" Qin Sang's words struck Jinju deeply, and she longed to hold her daughter and weep. But she knew she had to stay strong in this moment. Wrapping her arms tightly around Qin Sang, she said, "Why would I hate you? I only hate myself for not being able to stop you from jumping into this fire pit." Suddenly, Qin Sang turned and embraced her mother, her shoulders shaking as she wept uncontrollably. Jinju felt the long-standing barrier between them begin to melt away. Her heart softened, and she finally couldn't hold back her tears either. Mother and daughter clung to each other, crying their hearts out. A week later, the court date for the divorce arrived. Xianan, being a local, had pulled some strings at the courthouse and even forged a few loan documents. With Duo under his control, several rounds of hearings and trials followed, and in the end, custody of the child was awarded to Xianan. Qin Sang left the marriage with nothing. The moment the verdict was announced, Qin Sang felt her mind begin to unravel. Xianan's family strutted triumphantly out of the courthouse. Qin Sang ran after the judge, clutching his arm as she cried, "Doesn't the law say that children under 3 are supposed to be placed with their mothers first?" The judge, irritated, replied, "Didn't I explain it to you? The child is with the father now, and children aren't like property that can be forcibly transferred. We awarded custody based on the reality of the situation. Besides, you're from a single-parent household, with only your mother to help take care of the child. The father's family, on the other hand, has both grandparents available. It doesn't matter who raises the child, they're still both parents. No harm done." Jinju sneered. "What a fine explanation. So the law doesn't matter? Whoever is the most unreasonable wins. Whoever grabs the child first gets to keep them. Shouldn't custody be based on the parents' conditions, not the grandparents?" Her words stung the judge, who snapped back, "You old woman, your manners are terrible." "I may be ill-mannered, but at least I don't do anything against my conscience," Jinju said angrily, pulling Qin Sang out of the courthouse. "Mom, what do we do now? The child's been given to them. They won't let me see her again." Qin Sang sobbed as tears streamed down her face. Since Duo had been taken, she hadn't had a single night of proper sleep. Her hair was falling out in clumps, and she had lost a lot of weight. Zhenju saw all of this, and it broke her heart. Holding Qin Sang's hand tightly, Zhenju comforted her firmly. "Don't worry. Even if it costs me my life, I'll help you fight for custody of Duo. Such a precious child will be ruined in their hands." After Duo left, the house became much quieter. Qin Sang and Zhenju returned to their usual state of silence, and those brief, happy days seemed like they had only existed in a dream. During the day, Qin Sang continued going to work as usual, trying to use her busy schedule to distract herself from missing her child. Zhenju, meanwhile, resumed her single lifestyle. She rarely stayed home, always leaving in a hurry after cooking for Qin Sang. On several occasions, Qin Sang saw her mother chatting affectionately with a man at the entrance to their neighborhood. Afraid of intruding and creating awkwardness, Qin Sang would quickly pretend not to see them and lower her head as she passed by. After everything they had been through, Qin Sang had come to admire her mother in some ways. Zhenju always seemed able to quickly pull herself out of pain. After the court's ruling, Zhenju, full of determination, immediately filed an appeal to a higher court. Neither Zhenju nor Qin Sang cared about the financial losses. All they wanted was to win back custody of the child. However, the child was already under the control of Xiannan's family, and an appeal seemed like a long shot. Qin Sang didn't have much hope for the appeal. About half a month before the second appeal hearing, Qin Sang came home from work one day to find a man sitting at their dining table. Her mother, wearing an apron, was bringing out dishes from the kitchen. Qin Sang frowned, feeling a familiar sense of distaste rising in her, just like when she was a child. The man saw her enter and stood up with a broad smile. "Sang, it's been over 10 years. You don't recognize your Uncle Zhao." His voice boomed, full of presence. Qin Sang stared at his face for a moment before it clicked. This was the Uncle Zhao who used to buy her toys and new clothes when she was little. Among her mother's boyfriends, Uncle Zhao had been her favorite, not because he was generous or handsome, but because he was genuinely fun to be around and always made time to play with her. But eventually, Uncle Zhao and Zhenju had broken up. He had moved to another city, and Qin Sang hadn't seen him since. "Uncle Zhao, what brings you here?" Qin Sang was a little surprised but happy to see him. Uncle Zhao glanced meaningfully at Zhenju. "I'm here because of your situation, of course. But I should also thank you. If it weren't for your matter, your mother wouldn't have agreed to see me."
Come, sit down.
"Uncle Zhao wants to have a good chat with you." He pulled Qin Sang over to the sofa in the living room. "Qin Sang, let me be clear with you. Your Uncle Zhao has turned over a new leaf. I'm not involved in any of that rough business anymore. But I still have a lot of friends from the old days. Back then, your mom didn't want to be with me because she thought I was a bad influence and might lead you astray. To be honest, your mom's had a tough life. Don't blame her. If you hold a grudge against her and push her away, just think how much pain she'll be in." Uncle Zhao's voice even trembled a little with emotion. "Qin Sang, after I left your mom, I remarried. I have a son now, and he's already married. His mother's health wasn't good, and she passed away from liver disease a couple of years ago. So now, just like your mom, I'm on my own." Uncle Zhao raised his head, giving Qin Sang a sidelong glance as he asked, "Now that I'm pursuing your mom again, is that okay with you? I won't embarrass you, right?" There was a mischievous gleam in his eyes that suddenly reminded Qin Sang of how he used to look when he was younger. She couldn't help but smile and nod. "Uncle Zhao, didn't you say you were here because of my situation?" Qin Sang wondered. Could her mother have asked Uncle Zhao to find someone to teach Xianan a lesson? "That's right. I'm here to help you get your child back." Uncle Zhao slapped his thigh, as if he'd just remembered. "I've already made arrangements. I've been following that bastard for over a week now. I've got his family's routine down pat. That guy doesn't even care about the child. He leaves everything to his parents while he's out drinking and womanizing every night. We're making our move this afternoon." At 4 p.m., at the entrance of Yang Community, Xiannan's father was pushing Duo home. Suddenly, A few figures emerged, surrounding him. The leader introduced himself. Listen carefully, I'm Zhao Longfa from Haizhou, also known as Brother Fa. From now on, I'll protect Qin Sang and her child. If your son has a problem with that, he can come find me anytime. But if you dare to lay a finger on them again, I'll make sure you pay dearly. Xiannan's father started shouting, Someone come help. That cheap woman is seducing a wild man to snatch my child. People in the community, who were out with their kids in the sun, gathered around. Uncle Zhao stepped forward and slapped Xiannan's father hard across the face. You old fool. Uncle Zhao signaled in the distance, and Qin Sang came running over. She stretched out her arms toward the child in the stroller, joyfully calling out through her tears, Duo Duo, Mommy is here to pick you up. Duo Duo instinctively responded, Mommy, Mommy. The sweet sound of the child's voice struck at Qin Sang's heart. She held Duo Duo tightly, kissing her face again and again, tears streaming down her cheeks in an instant. Among the onlookers, a few who knew the details started to comment, That woman is pitiful. Every time she went for prenatal checkups, she went alone while her husband was out indulging himself. I heard he had an affair. He didn't even care about the child and was always out chasing women. The elders in that family aren't any good either. The mother-in-law is a real shrew, forcing the child's mother to leave with nothing. Zhao Longfa gave a glance, and several of his friends escorted Qin Sang and her child out of the community. The crowd murmured for a while before dispersing. Only Xiannan's father remained, squatting on the ground, crying out loudly. 2 weeks later, the second trial began. This time, with Zhao Longfa's connections and considering Duoduo's young age and that she had always been raised by her mother, the custody was finally awarded to Qin Sang. After getting the child back, Zhao Longfa, fearing that Xiannan's family would come looking for trouble again, stayed with Qin Sang and Zhenju in the city. As soon as they exited the courthouse, Zhenju shouted that she wanted to treat Qin Sang and Zhao Longfa to hot pot. They hadn't gained a single cent, yet they were as happy as if it were the new year. The steaming heat from the hot pot warmed Zhenju's vibrant face, and she had even put on some bright makeup for the occasion. Before heading out, she took Qin Sang's hand and said, Cheer up. We can't let the CF family see us lose our spirit. Zhenju's determination made Qin Sang feel that they were not just mother and daughter, but close allies fighting in the same trench, their hearts closer than ever before. Halfway through the meal, Qin Sang jokingly asked her mother, Zhenju, are you crazy? At your age, you're not enjoying life and still helping me raise a burden. Aren't you tired of it? Zhenju laughed, her eyes brightening. I refuse to believe that we can't raise a little one together. After downing a drink, Zhenju leaned in with squinted eyes and said, Don't forget, I raised you all by myself. Sure, I may have raised you a bit askew. You barely even talked to me, but I still managed to get you into college. Through the hazy warmth of the moment, looking at Zhenju's drunken state, Qin Sang smiled, tears of joy forming in her eyes. Zhao Longfa busied himself serving food to the mother and daughter, saying, From now on, you've got me too. The day after the court ruling, Qin Sang submitted her resignation letter. She was determined to return to her hometown with her child, Zhenju, and Uncle Zhao to start a new life. Before leaving, Xiaohui came by to see her off. Zhenju brought in a large plate of assorted fruits and cheerfully said, Xiaohui, eat more. There's dragon fruit here. It's great for anti-aging. And I drizzled yogurt on it, not salad dressing, so don't worry about gaining weight. Qin Sang laughed as she pushed Zhenju out of the room. Okay. I get it. Just let me have a moment alone with Xiaohui, alright? Seeing Qin Sang and her mother laughing together, Xiaohui felt a wave of nostalgia. She said to Qin Sang, Do you remember our first day of college? That was the first time I met your mom. She enthusiastically treated our entire dorm to dinner, and we had a huge plate of spicy chicken. It was so spicy our mouths were swollen. She even challenged us to drink beer with her in those giant cups and asked us to take good care of you. Honestly, back then, I really envied you for having such a cool mom. Qin Sang smiled shyly. Yeah, but back then I didn't understand. I was even embarrassed by her sometimes. As a kid, I always envied other people's mothers. Xiao Hui gently said, Qin Sang, you know my mom passed away when I was in my second year of high school. I just wanted to cherish her, but I never had the chance. But you still have your mom. Treasure her well. Xiao Hui choked up as she spoke. Qin Sang turned and hugged Xiao Hui tightly, their foreheads touching, tears streaming down as they cried together. Qin Sang knew that no matter where life took them, she and Xiao Hui would always be the best of friends. Catching sight of her mother bustling around, Qin Sang suddenly remembered a quote she had read. A woman must be thoroughly hurt by the man she loves to understand the weight of a mother's love. That sentiment perfectly matched her current feelings. Uncle Zhao returned, pushing the child out to enjoy the sun, while Duo ran around the house excitedly with a new windmill, screaming in delight. Before long, the fragrant aroma of fried meatballs filled the air. Outside, the sun shone brightly. The sky was clear and blue, and the world felt brand new. Qin Sang felt incredibly happy.